So you want to run an AI automation agency. No office, no employees, no inventory. Just a laptop, a few subscriptions, and a client list that pays you thousands of dollars to build something ChatGPT could technically do for free, if the client had any idea how to ask it. You wake up, open your laptop from anywhere in the world, check a dashboard that shows 3 new leads qualified themselves overnight while you slept, and bill a client $3,000 for a system that took you 4 hours to build. That's the pitch. That's what the YouTube thumbnails promise. That's what "I made $10,000 in my first month with AI automation" is selling you. Here's what those thumbnails don't show you. The client who ghosts you after the free discovery call. The automation that worked perfectly in testing and broke silently in production because an API changed overnight. The $20 a month tool subscription that becomes $70 a month the moment your workflow scales past the free tier. And the fact that no employees doesn't mean no labor. It means you are the labor indefinitely until you systemize your way out of it, which almost nobody actually does in year one. The AI automation agency is one of the most misunderstood business models of this decade. On the outside, it looks like passive income with a laptop. On the inside, it's a service business with the same structural problem every service business has. Your revenue depends entirely on your ability to keep finding, closing, and satisfying humans. And the tools underneath you are rented, not owned, from companies that can change the price at any time. Before we talk numbers, we need to define what we're actually talking about, because AI automation agency gets used to describe about 4 different businesses. There's the workflow automation shop, building things like lead qualification systems, appointment reminders, and internal reporting using tools like Make.com and Zapier connected to AI models. There's the voice agent and chatbot builder, deploying AI phone agents and website chatbots for businesses, often using platforms like Vapi or 11 Labs. There's the AI consulting practice, which doesn't build anything itself, but advises businesses on AI strategy and trains their staff. And there's the productized micro SaaS, where instead of custom client work, the operator builds one reusable AI tool and sells it repeatedly. These are not the same business. A workflow shop is closer to freelance software development. A consulting practice is closer to a training business. This script is going to focus primarily on the workflow and implementation agency, the most common entry point, and the one most people picture when they hear AI automation agency, while noting where the others diverge financially. Unlike a ranch or a restaurant, this business has no land and no building. Its fixed asset is a stack of software subscriptions, and the trap here is that the advertised price is rarely the real price. Start with automation platforms. Zapier's professional plan runs about $20 a month for 750 tasks, but a single 5-step workflow burns 5 tasks per run. So a moderately active client automation can chew through that allowance in days. Make.com is the cheaper alternative most experienced operators migrate to. Their core plan runs around $10.50 a month for 10,000 operations, scaling up to $18 for the Pro plan and $34 for teams. But Make counts things differently than Zapier does. Triggers and filters count as operations where Zapier doesn't count them as tasks, so the sticker price comparison is misleading until you've actually mapped a real workflow's operation count. Then there's the AI model cost. This is the line item that surprises new operators most because it scales with usage in a way flat subscriptions don't. A mid-tier AI model runs around $2.50 per million input tokens and $15 per million output tokens. That sounds negligible per call until you're running a client's customer service bot answering hundreds of queries a day. The cheapest models run as low as 10 cents per million input tokens, and smart operators route simple tasks to cheap models and only use expensive ones where reasoning quality actually matters. Get this routing wrong, and a $50 a month AI bill quietly becomes a $400 a month bill by month 3. Money that comes straight out of your margin unless you've priced the client contract to absorb it. Add in the supporting tools. A voice agent platform, a document and proposal tool, a scheduling tool, a database. Each individually cheap. Collectively, another $50 to $150 a month once you're running real client workloads. Realistic all-in tool stack for a single active client system. $100 to $300 a month before your own time is counted. Run 5 client systems simultaneously, and that can climb toward $500 to $1,000 a month in pure software costs. A number most beginner tutorials never mention because a single demo build looks cheap in isolation. Here's the infrastructure cost that doesn't show up on any pricing page. Time spent becoming competent enough to sell this as a service, not a hobby project. Based on how the most visible course-based agencies structured their own curricula, the realistic on-ramp looks like this. A foundational phase of learning what automation platforms, AI models, and workflow logic actually are, typically compressed into a few hours of focused study for the concepts, but weeks of hands-on building to get comfortable enough not to break client systems. Then a build phase, where operators construct 5 to 10 real automations for themselves or for free to develop pattern recognition for what breaks and why. Debugging a malformed data payload, fixing a trigger that silently stopped firing, discovering that a system checking a database every 5 minutes has quietly burned most of a monthly operations budget. These are not edge cases. They are the default experience of month 1. This period is unpaid. It is the ranch's fencing and water systems, invisible from the outside, and the single biggest reason most people who start learning AI automation never convert that into billable client work. Realistic time investment before someone can competently sell and deliver a basic client automation is 4 to 8 weeks of consistent, focused effort for someone with no prior technical background. You have the tools. You have the skill. Now you need someone willing to pay you for it, and this is where the no employees, no overhead pitch quietly hides its most expensive line item. Your own unpaid sales labor. There are 2 dominant paths, and their costs look completely different. Warm outreach means contacting your existing network, systematically, to find your first few clients. The dollar cost here is close to zero. The time cost is not. This typically means dozens of conversations before the first yes. And even then, most freelancers report converting only a fraction of pitched prospects. One documented case, a freelancer pitched 30 small businesses on AI content services and closed 2, both at under $50 per project. A low-margin outcome because content writing AI services are heavily saturated in 2026. Automation implementation converts better than generic AI content services, but the labor cost of finding and closing each client is still real, even if the dollar cost isn't. The other path is content and community, building an audience through tutorials, posts, or videos that demonstrate expertise, then converting that audience into leads. The dollar cost is also near zero, but the time to first client is longer, often months, and requires consistent output before it compounds. One documented example from this space, an operator started posting simple automation tutorials, built visibility inside a niche community, and eventually generated enough inbound interest to support a growing agency. But that outcome took sustained content output over an extended period before client flow became reliable, not a single viral post. And here's the overlooked acquisition cost. The free discovery call. Every serious inbound lead expects a free consultation before signing. That's unpaid time spent qualifying a prospect who may never convert, and industry-wide proposal to close rates for service businesses often sit well under 50%, meaning more than half of the proposals you spend hours customizing will never be signed. You close the client. The invoice is real. Now the actual cost center of this business begins, keeping the thing running. A first build for a client, a lead qualification system, an outbound voice calling workflow, a proposal generator is not a one-and-done deliverable. It requires ongoing maintenance because the ecosystem underneath it is unstable by nature. A P is changed without warning, a platform deprecates a feature, an AI model gets replaced by a newer version with different behavior, and a workflow that ran fine for 3 months can suddenly stop sending emails. This is why most experienced agency operators don't sell a one-time build. They sell a build plus a retainer, typically ranging from $1,500 to $3,000 a month for ongoing maintenance and support, according to multiple 2026 industry breakdowns of this business model. Healthcare and legal adjacent automations, where compliance stakes are higher, Command retainers toward the top of that range or beyond. Initial project pricing for a single automation build runs $1,500 to $8,000 depending on complexity. A simple FAQ chatbot at the low end, a multi-step voice agent plus CRM integration system at the high end. But the build price is deceptive if you don't account for scope creep, the well-documented pattern of clients asking for just one more automation mid-project, extending delivery time without extending the invoice, unless the contract explicitly caps scope. Here's the structural tension at the heart of this business, the same one that shows up in every service-based model. Revenue arrives in lumps. Costs arrive continuously. You might close one $5,000 project this month and nothing next month. Your tool subscriptions bill you on the first regardless. Your time, the actual resource you're selling, doesn't pause between clients. It either goes toward billable delivery, unbillable sales calls, or unbillable maintenance on last month's build. Unlike a ranch, there's no seasonal harvest to plan around. The unpredictability here is client-driven, not weather-driven, but it produces the same cash flow whiplash. Feast months followed by lean months, and very little in between. Monthly recurring costs for a solo operator running 3 to 5 active client relationships, realistically, run $300 to $800 in tool subscriptions, plus the opportunity cost of your own time, which most beginner operators dramatically undervalue when pricing their first few projects. Let's build one real month. A solo operator lands 2 new client builds this month at an average of $3,000 each. That's $6,000 in project revenue. They're also maintaining 4 existing clients on retainer at an average of $2,000 a month each. That's $8,000 in retainer revenue. Total gross revenue, $14,000. Now the costs. Tool stack across 6 active client systems, $600. Time spent on unbillable sales calls and proposals that didn't close, say 8 hours at what the operator could otherwise bill, roughly $150 an hour equivalent, $1,200 in opportunity cost. No employees, no rent, no equipment financing. Net revenue before the operator's own labor is counted, $12,200. That's the number the course seller thumbnails show you, but subtract the actual hours worked. Client calls, building, debugging, content creation for lead generation, admin, realistically 50 to 60 hours a week for a solo operator at this revenue level. Divide $12,200 by roughly 220 monthly hours, and the effective hourly rate is around $55 an hour. Solid income, but a long way from passive and far more hours than a traditional 40-hour job. Now the stress test. 2 of the 4 retainer clients churn this month, a well-documented risk in this model, since automations can feel replaceable once a client's internal team learns the platform, or once budgets tighten. Retainer revenue drops to $4,000. One of the 2 new project leads ghosts after the free discovery call, a common outcome given sub 50% close rates industry-wide. Project revenue drops to $3,000. Total gross revenue, $7,000. Nearly half of the good month on the exact same cost base because the costs didn't move with the revenue. That's the volatility trap. The tools bill you the same either way. Only the client relationships are unpredictable. Here's what should make you suspicious of every $10,000 a month AI agency testimonial. If this business were as reliably lucrative as the pitch suggests, why is so much of the visible money in this space coming from people selling courses and communities about it, rather than from the agency work itself? One of the most visible operators in this space has built an agency, generated several $1 million in agency revenue over roughly 2 years, but has also built a free community with over 180,000 members and sells a structured curriculum around exactly this skill set, alongside running a YouTube channel with hundreds of thousands of subscribers. That's not a criticism. It's a structural observation. In every gold rush, some of the most reliable money is made by the people selling shovels, the tools, the platforms, the education, not exclusively by the miners doing the actual digging. Zoom out further, and the pattern repeats at the platform level. Zapier and Make.com make money. Whether your automation makes the client happy or not, you pay the subscription either way. The AI model providers make money on every single API call your agency runs, scaling with your success and your failures equally. The tools underneath this business model have a more reliable revenue stream than most of the agencies built on top of them, because platform revenue doesn't depend on any single agency's client retention. That doesn't mean the agency model is a bad bet. The underlying market opportunity is real. Multiple 2026 industry sources point to roughly 1.7 million US businesses earning between $500,000 and $10 million a year, few of which have in-house AI capability, and one widely circulated community estimate put the ratio of automation service providers to businesses needing help at roughly 1 to 1100, a genuinely underserved market. But an underserved market and an easy business are two different claims. The people making the most reliable money in this space right now are disproportionately the ones who reached scale early, built an audience, and diversified into education, not the newest entrants doing one-off client builds. Let's look at two real months side by side. The good month. Two new builds close at $3,500 average. 5 retainer clients stay active at $2,200 average. Gross revenue, $18,000. Tool costs and unbillable time run around $2,000. Net, roughly $16,000 at maybe 55 hours of work. A genuinely excellent month and the reason the testimonials exist. This scenario is real and achievable. The bad month. One retainer client churns after their internal team decides they can maintain the automation themselves. A real, commonly cited risk once clients learn the platform. A second client disputes an invoice over a workflow that broke when an API changed, costing unpaid rebuild hours. No new builds closed this month because both discovery calls this month went to competitors offering lower prices in an increasingly crowded market. Gross revenue, around $6,000 from the 3 remaining retainer clients, minus a partial refund on the disputed invoice, landing closer to $4,400. Costs stay roughly flat at $600 to $800. Net, barely $3,600 to $4,000 for the same or greater hours worked, because chasing the invoice dispute and doing the emergency rebuild took real time. The swing between those 2 months is more than $12,000, driven almost entirely by client retention and lead conversion. Two variables far less predictable and far less within your control than most people entering this space expect. So can an AI automation agency make you real money? Yes, genuinely, not hypothetically. The market gap is real, the tools are cheap enough to start with almost no capital, and the ceiling is high for operators who reach retainer-based stability and eventually productize what they've learned. But probably not on the laptop on a beach timeline the thumbnails promise, and probably not without months of unpaid skill building, inconsistent income in year one, and the uncomfortable realization that no employees just means you're the only one absorbing every cost, every client mood swing, and every silently broken API call at 11 p.m. The romance of the AI agency is real. So is the fact that, like every service business before it, it rewards the operators who survive the unglamorous middle, the maintenance, the churn, the slow, client-by-client compounding, far more than it rewards the ones chasing the fastest possible first sale.